Hi, good morning and welcome to week 4 of the Avid Summer School series. It's a bit of an early start this morning, so we have tea. I'm going to do 3 questions this week. The first one I'm going to look at some Sibelius things, which combines questions that various people have asked David Thompson, Christian Biguy, Ed Sanders and others about how we use Sibelius in the process. I'm going to have a quick tiny chat about mastering, and then also just a bit of a blue skies thing about Anthony Amado's question about what do you do when you don't know what to do and where to start. But first, we're going to look at Sibelius. A lot of people have asked of how we use Sibelius in our process. As with other things, it depends what the end result needs to be. Sometimes when I've been doing more classical projects, recording projects, then sometimes I'll work straight into Sibelius or just from a pencil sketch into Sibelius. So I've got on here, for instance, this is from a string quartet EP that I've done, and this didn't actually go anywhere near a sequencer. I didn't even mock this up because there's no reason, because it was just for a recording for 4 quartets EP, which is terribly good if you've not got it yet. But more about how we use in film and TV, then the Sibelius tends to come at the end of the process. So however I've worked on pencil and paper first off, I'll then go into a sequencer program, because mocking up is very important in the process, because you need to be producing now sort of photorealistic demos, really for your producer and director to hear. And also because the majority of scores that I would do would be hybrid scores, so would have some synth elements in there. Then I tend to control all of those in a sequencer program, so whatever your program of choice is. A lot of people now use Pro Tools for it. So once I've got the cue so that I'm happy with it and it's signed off by the director and the producer and everybody that needs to sign off on it, at that point we'll export a MIDI file. Now there are various ways and means of making your sequencer technique and keeping things tidy so that when you export a MIDI file into Sibelius you're in good shape in the first place. And also a lot of people give their orchestrators or give themselves various degrees of detail in terms of how much they want their orchestrators to flesh out. I tend to be a massive control freak, unsurprisingly, and so I try and make my demos as detailed as possible, so that particularly if I'm passing on the MIDI file to an orchestrator. I mean, I work with some fantastic people. Anthony Whedon, who does the majority of the stuff for Sherlock. It's great, very, very, very quick on Sibelius, and also very good at translating the performance onto paper. Will work terribly well, but if you tidy up first in your sequencer program, then you'll find when you export to Sibelius it's much more it's a much quicker process. So let's quickly look at a couple of scores I've got here from the last season of Sherlock. The first one, Prepared to Do Anything. What we do in Sherlock, it's a hybrid score, so there's a bunch of synth sounds and all kinds of things going on, and then usually a string section of varying sizes on the top, and then other live instruments, live percussion, live guitars, mandolins, all those kind of things. But this score shows you the string overdubs for one of the cues from the final episode of the last season. And you can see actually we're sort of where these notes are definitely the notes that came out of the sequencer, but there's down here there's some string effects. So actually a lot of the notational things that you just couldn't achieve just printing out single notes from a sequencer program are then elaborated on either in words or in almost graphic notation in Sibelius. So that's an example of something that sort of is slightly interpreted from what's in the MIDI file. And if I show you what's the next cue in the sequence, just about Blood on the Pavement, here you can see we've got a string ensemble of I think we had 20 players for this, and we're spreading it far and wide. It's a very Divisi score. Now this again, we're sort of trying to get the best out of everything. So in this particular cue, there would be no samples, no string samples used in the final mix. It would be just our 20 players. So we're actually, when laying this out on the score, and this would be a combination between David, Arnold, myself, and Anthony, the orchestrator, we're really trying to make something idiomatic for the string orchestra. So it's not necessarily just slavishly transcribing what's in your sequence, because what might work best for the sample strings is generally not what always works best for the real strings. So that's how we use Sibelius, or one of the ways that we use Sibelius. It's in the incredible graphical flexibility, and the way that you can produce beautiful scores means that we try and use each of the programs in the studio to their best effect. Sibelius is fabulous at making scores on, so that's what we use that for. So finally, just a couple of quick notes about mastering and how to start a piece. We tend not to master film scores in the traditional sense of squashing it as you would do with a CD track, particularly because when you want your music to sit under dialogue, the dynamics of it are very, very important. So my overall rule of thumb is don't master your film scores, certainly don't overcompress them, but you can certainly compress and master and do your final EQs for tracks or film scores in Pro Tools really well. I particularly like plugins like the Massey plugins and some of the TC Electronic ones, and you can get some great stuff. So yes, it's a very good tool to do it in Pro Tools, but don't oversquash your film scores. And then finally, what do you do when you don't know where to start on a piece? From Anthony Amado. 2 quick things. 1, get your backside on your chair. It's not going to get written if you're not sitting down. But 2, break your habits. So if you normally start a certain way with a certain instrument, a certain synth sound, in a certain key, a certain tempo, change it. Just try and find a different way to let your unconscious bring out the amazing ideas that I'm sure are in there. Thanks so much for listening. Next week will be week 5, which will, I think, be the last week. And so do send any questions in. I really, really appreciate them, and I hope the answers are of some use. Thanks very much and have a great week. Cheers. Bye-bye.